So the Triumph 955i RS, long-term feedback. The review that came 20 years too late that nobody was waiting for is finally with us. See, I've had the bike for about a year now, and well, I think it's worthwhile to share my experiences about this bike is because I think it offers good value for money for those looking to get back into biking. So many hobbies and interests and whatever we like to do and passions, they all cost a lot of money, and it can look a bit prohibitive at sometimes. You can think, well, I can't get involved because this costs so much money, how can I justify it? Well, the nice thing about this Triumph is I picked it up for just over £1,500, and you can pick up a nice example between £1,500 and £2,000 and really just get on with enjoying riding a bike. That's its number one benefit for me. Just get on the bike and enjoy it. Is there anything specific that you need to look out for if you want to try and buy one of these things? I would say no, nothing specific. You can sift through the forums and see if there's problems. I've had a quick look through, and there's nothing that I've seen that I was concerned about in any way. What's nice with kind of Triumphs of this age is that they're quite modular, and Triumph, when they came back to bikes, they took a really modular approach to manufacturing, which is quite clever really. So across the range, certainly when this one was coming out, I think they did their TT600 for a little while. And they did do their Daytona 600 and 675s and all that kind of thing, but certainly when this one was out, it's mainly just a 955i, and it was in all their bikes. So spares and knowledge about the engine, it's still out there, even though the bike's a little bit older. So you've not got anything much to worry about. If there was a problem, it would have been resolved. And I think that's why, if you've got a choice, if you can go for the 2002 and later, because there was an update, you get a little bit more power, but it's nothing to write home about. You're never going to feel the difference. So if you can, go for that one. But at the same time, if I saw an early one in better condition for less money, I also wouldn't hesitate in picking one of those up. Not for a moment. Handling and the weight, I think people could be put off and think, oh, maybe I should be getting something a bit lighter. You know, maybe one of these upright bikes that everyone's very keen on at the minute, the kind of big trailies. I'm used to off-road bikes. I did race motocross for a while. I had field bikes when I was a kid, and this has been easy to handle on the road. You just got to ride accordingly. The seating position, you know, doesn't put weight on my wrists. I've done a 3-hour stint on it on an evening out and had no aches or pains. If anything, the riding position's relatively upright. It's certainly a sports tourer in its approach. It's not something that you're going to be setting lap records on, but like with most things, the rider makes a difference. If a competent rider's on this bike and a nincompoop is on the high performance bike, this one's going to come out better. And there's only so fast you can get around these corners anyway, because you don't know what's around them. It's like, this one's blind. I could really attack it, but it's just on the basis where I've got to hope that no one's cutting across. And if they are, I've got problems. So I can go fast between the corners, and then I've got to keep an eye out as I go round. It's clear, roll on the power. And these engines are lovely and smooth. They don't really want to be revved that hard. You can short shift. There's a bunch of mid-range on them, and yeah, they're just loads of fun. So I definitely think if you're on a budget and you want something like this, it's great. I don't think you can beat it for the money. I did look at a GSXR 600, which somebody wanted close to £3,000 for, and it was, to be honest, it was a dog, and I'd have needed to spend money on it straight away. And then on the way home from looking at that bike about a year ago, I looked at a few other GSXR 600s. They were earlier S-Rad versions, and they were tatty. You know, they weren't nice. Whereas this Triumph, it was in good condition. The person had looked after it. Sure, there's a few little scratches on it. It's not perfect, but what am I going to expect after 20 years? It's not going to be perfect. But saying, even like this, I just want to get out on the bike and have some fun. It there starts on the button, no problem. So power wise, if you're interested, you know, all this stuff's online, you can find it pretty easily. I think for the later bikes like this one, which is a 2002 onwards, I think they quote them at about sort of 125 horsepower, and the early ones, I think they come in at maybe 111, but genuinely on the open road you're not going to feel that, and that's not really what it's all about with these kind of bikes. It's all about looking for good condition, something that's been cared for, bit of service history, and there's nothing wrong with it. Suspension's quite basic, but it does the job. It does the job just fine. Again, if you're finding that on a bike like this the suspension's letting you down and it's bouncing around all over the place and it's not handling as well as it should, then you've probably got to think to yourself, I probably ought to start booking up a few more track days, because you're probably riding a bit too quick for the road anyway. It's certainly something I'm much more conscious now. The roads always seem busier, and you're so vulnerable that if you do want to just have a little bit of fun, you've got to be absolutely sure that everything's in your favour before doing so. Now, that sounds boring, but that's the reality of it. So, do I have any problems with mine? Well, I wouldn't say it's exactly problems. It's got something to sort out. I've got an engine management light that's come on. I think that was kind of my fault because I made a mistake. I decided it'd be a good idea to buy a second-hand aftermarket exhaust can and put it on. It was one from eBay, and I thought I might make it sound a bit nicer. People always talk about how nice a Triumph sounds, and it only happened once I put that exhaust on, and it keeps coming on, then it'll go away, then it'll come back again. So that's probably my fault, to be honest. The brakes, I think there's just wear and tear there. I've bled the system, put new fluid in, all that kind of stuff, but they're still a bit spongy. I think the discs, or the pads, sorry, although they look like they've got plenty of life on them and they'll easily pass the MOT, supposedly on these bikes, once the pads are passed about halfway, it's a bit spongy. You know, if you were used to a modern bike and you jumped on this one and you want to be using just a couple of fingers all the time, you can't. You've got to, and this is okay for me, I'm used to slightly rough around the edge bikes. It's easier with a good 3-finger grip or something like that, or even just all of your fingers. So yeah, that's just wear and tear. That's going to happen on any bike, so I don't really think you can classify that as a fault. So yeah, I definitely think you should check one out if you're looking for a budget way back in, or even a lot of the Triumph models of this age. So there we have it, the old Trumpet. But yeah, like I said, you're looking at things like general condition, but bear in mind it's 2002. I think these panels might have been repainted at some point because the RS graphics look completely different to that. A little bit of a scratch here and there. But that aside, everything seems in pretty decent order. Again, a little scratch on the engine casing down there. But yeah, it's not the most incredible thing to look at, but having said that, certainly not the worst either.